Yeah, we're live. 6:47. I'm early, and I, and I definitely have the right cam shirt on, having the wrong cam shirt on. I want to talk about camshafts. This particular test was on an LS. It could have easily been on a 5 liter, could have been on a big block Chevy, whatever. What I want to talk about is comparing gains that we get from a chassis dyno versus an engine dyno, and not specifically the way that you're thinking. I want to talk about problems with going from one to the other. I have a video up if you haven't seen it. First of all, thanks to the guys at Airflow Research and Vortec and Brian Tooley Racing for supporting the channel. As always, those guys are awesome. And I promise I'm going to have some interviews with Brian up, and also the guys from Airflow Research and Vortec, etc. I'm going to have interviews up starting. I'm trying to start that this week, actually. But what I want to talk about is a situation that happened, and it's happened actually, not this thing specifically, but this type of thing has happened a number of times. And it's something that's, I don't know that it's unique to dyno testing, because it probably happens in other situations too. But I had this was actually a phone conversation that I had with a guy that was asking me. He said, hey, he was complaining actually. He said, hey, and this was on a truck NORRIS cam that he had installed the truck NORRIS cam because he had seen the videos that I had done on it. And of all the cams I've tested, I've probably tested that individual cam maybe more than all the rest, maybe not more than that comp 54 469 cam or 459 cam. I have to go back and check and see which one of those I've done actually more videos on. But at any rate, so he bought the camshaft and had it put in his truck, and he did it the right way, which I applaud, which was awesome. He took his truck in and ran it on the chassis dyno. He said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get a baseline, and then with the stock cam, then I'm going to put a cam in, and then we'll do another baseline, and I want to see what kind of power we get. I said, dude, that's right up my alley, man. That's my jams. That sounds like a perfect way to do it. You know, you can always feel it if it's enough. And a cam swap in an LS, especially particularly that camshaft, that's going to give you 60 horsepower or more, certainly on the engine dyno, it's going to give you that much of a power gain. You're going to notice that. You should be, if you can't feel 60 extra horsepower, 50 or 60 extra horsepower, you probably shouldn't be doing the cam swap, because it's going to be noticeably faster. And especially if you tune it and it now shifts higher and does all the things, it's going to feel like it should feel like a different truck when you put a camshaft in it. It should sound better because it's, it's going to have that cam elope to it. Particularly that cam, the truck NORRIS cam has an idle, so it's got a noticeable cami idle, so it all should be great. And so the guy ran it on the chassis dyno, and then did the cam swap. He also put injectors in it because he needed bigger injectors, and then they did a tune on it. And then he called me. He said, "Oh, he said, I knew this was all too good to be true. We got, your dynos, your stuff is just all lies. It's all BS. It's just you schlepping cams or whatever." I'm like, let's hang on a second. I said, before I just completely destroy you, because one of us probably doesn't know what they're talking about. I said, but let's go over this. I said, I want to help you solve your problem. I said, because I guarantee you that you're having a problem. I said, I've run that cam certainly back to back versus other things no less than a dozen times, probably more than that now. I said, so I know what it does. And it's been put in lots of vehicles with chassis dyno testing. And I said, and I know what it does there. I said, I haven't done that. I said, but I know a lot of guys that have. I said, so we know what it does. And what it does on the engine dyno, it's going to do on the chassis dyno, because I've taken stuff from the engine dyno and put it on the chassis dyno, and we know what it does. I said, so there is something going on, because he came back and said, okay, we ran a baseline. We put the camshaft in. We did a tune. And he said, we got 31 horsepower. I'm like, well, there's obviously a problem. Yeah, that cam's junk. I said, it's not the cam. I said, I know what the cam does. You're nowhere near what that cam should be doing. So please talk to me about what's going on. What else had changed? I said, so let's start off. First of all, when you did this, did you run the truck on the chassis dyno? Did you leave it on the chassis dyno? Did you change the camshaft and then retune it with the injectors and then run it that day? No, I didn't do that. It took almost 2 weeks for him to get back to the dyno. I said, okay. I said, so right off the bat, we have something there. I said, when I do my test, it's the same day. I said, given what your truck does and what all these trucks do, if you ran it one day and you ran it the next day, I said, it's probably going to be very repeatable, particularly in stock trim. I said, so did you optimize the tune when it was stock? He said, no, we just ran it the way that it was. I said, well, when you ran it after that and put the injectors in, put the camshaft in, I said, did you then optimize the tune? He goes, yeah, my tuner did it all stiff. He said, he did say something about this. He said this camshaft is more prone to detonation than the stock camshaft was. I'm like, that seems odd. The camshaft itself, I don't know that that's going to be more or less detonation sensitive. I said, but if we look at it, this cam does make more torque through most of the curve than the stock one. Maybe not at off idle, maybe not 1,000 RPM, maybe not even 1,500, or maybe not even 2,000 RPM. I said, but above that, it's going to be as good or better than the stock cam. I said, so it's making more torque, more cylinder pressure. So I said, I'm getting a vibe here. I'm thinking that could be. We don't see that on the engine dyno because we're running the motor cold. You're not running the motor cold. And so I maybe that's possible. Maybe greater cylinder pressure. Maybe it's more prone to detonation. He goes, yeah. The guy said, and we could hear it. He said we could only run 21 degrees of timing. I said, well, I don't know what you ran when it was stock, but 21 degrees of timing is not enough timing for an LS to make peak power. One of the things that I do when we're running the thing on the engine dyno is whatever camshafts we're running, but if we start with the stock camshaft, we make as much power as that stock camshaft can make. We put it on the dyno, we tune it, we play with the air fuel, make sure the air fuel is right, and then we adjust it and go, okay, there's no more power there. We start adding timing, and as soon as there's no more timing, there's just no more power there. That's what it does. Okay, that's how much it'll make, and it will repeat, as long as we have the air temperature and the water temperature and the oil temperature the same, it will repeat just, every pull. It's all good. I said, so that's the way that we do it. I said, why is the timing so low? Why are you not running timing? I said, I know that the timing is going to be lower than what we are able to run. I said, by the way, that combination with that and the camshaft is not, the camshaft really doesn't change the timing very much, if at all. But the amount of timing that you're running is not optimized for that motor. I said, that motor will make peak power at 29 degrees or thereabouts. Whether or not you can run that could be an octane thing. I said, but it still seems weird to me that we don't see that big a swing in detonation from a camshaft because of cylinder pressure, which is the only thing that I could think would be happening. I said, your exhaust is not clogged. We went through things, and he had changed the springs. Like I said, he had changed the injectors and stuff. I said, so something else seems weird. I said, did you change anything else? Was there any other change going on? Oh yeah, we did one other thing, but it could only make it better. I said, okay, well, that's the kind of thing that we want. He said, I took the factory air box off, and I just put an open filter in there. I said, so you're running the factory air intake when it was stock, and then some sort of, he goes, yeah, it's like a open cone filter deal. I said, in the engine compartment. I said, when you ran the test, did you run it with the hood closed? He goes, yeah, I asked him to run with the hood closed so that it would be real world. I said, yeah, that's good. You want it to be what it's going to be out there in the real world, particularly if you're getting detonation, because you don't want to have detonation when you're out there running around. So that makes sense. I said, here is what I think is the problem. I said, and I don't know, I'm assuming that you ran it on good gas. He goes, well, it had, I don't think he gave me an honest answer here. I said, did you run it on 91? So at least you could get, or 91 or 93. I don't remember where this guy was. I'm thinking he was in a 93 zone. I said, but did you at least put premium in it? Well, this is what we had in it. So this is what we ran. I'm like, okay. I said, so there's a couple things going on here. I said, one, I don't know if you've changed the way that the meter is reading. I said, I think if you got the tune correct, and that's not going to be a problem. I said, hopefully that's okay. I said, but what I can guarantee you is that you're getting more air temperature, particularly with the hood closed, and it's going to be much more sensitive to detonation in that way than it would be if you just had the stock air cleaner on there, the air box on there, because it's grabbing air from the fender well. So you're not getting cold air. I said, forget about how restrictive it is. Probably not at all at that power level anyway. I said, so, and a lot of times I've seen some air intake setups where the stock one did better than the aftermarket one, unless you go and retune everything. I said, so that I said, I know the temperature thing is going to be an issue. And that makes me think, okay, that might be more to do with your detonation issue than the camshaft. I said, so, okay, here's what I want you to do. I said, I'm not going to tell you to put your stock air box back on there. I said, but this will be very telling for you. I said, here's what I want you to do. Go back to the dyno. Before you do that, run all the gas out of it that you have, this 87 and mid-grade combination or whatever, that you then put 2 gallons of premium in. I said, that's not going to get the job done. I said, just put good gas in for this test. Even if you only put 5 gallons in, do it when it's almost empty. Put 5 gallons in, drive it around, make sure you have all the good gas up there. I said, and at least run premium for the test so that you can tune it, and then the knock sensor can take the stuff away. Or you can have the guy put a low octane tune in there if you want a low octane tune. I said, but get rid of your hot air intake. I said, that's terrible. I said, if you want to just run it on the dyno, I said, just bring the air intake assembly, open the hood and bring the air intake assembly just up out of the hood. So it's not grabbing all of the fan wash out of the radiator and grabbing nothing but hot air. I said, and if you tune it and you do that and you have enough octane and you can put the timing in it that it should have to make the power. I said, because you're not testing the camshaft right now. You're limited by other things. You're limited by this certainly a temperature problem, and you have no timing in it. So you're restricting the motor from what it can really do. I mean, you're 8 degrees away from where this thing wants to make optimum power production. At 28 or 27, it's still going to be right there. I said, but if you want all of it, if you want the last 2 or 3 horsepower, whatever, I said, that's where it's going to want to be. So go do that. And long story short, he did. He said, yeah, we actually put an elbow on it and just put the cone filter up, open the hood, put a cone filter up. We ran it. I think he did put 93 in. He said, we put 93 in it. We ran it. He said he added a bunch more. He added like 4 or 5 degrees more timing. He said, and now it made 51 horsepower compared to the stock setup on the chassis dyno. I said, that's a number that's more realistic and kind of what I would expect at the tire, given that camshaft. He goes, yeah, it's much, the whole thing is much better. He even raised the shift point so that when I'm running it, I can take advantage now more of, because the thing, he goes, honestly, maybe all the way down low, because I have a stock converter on this thing. He goes, maybe it doesn't feel quite as good there. He goes, but everywhere else, he goes, it just screams and pulls and, pulls the 6500 or whatever. And it does all things. He goes, I'm just very excited about it. And so he was very happy. And my point is, for all of this, is that the guy did the right thing. The guy, and I get this from people from time to time, he did the right thing. He wanted to do a baseline, and he did an after test, and he paid for the dyno, so that's not a cheap deal. He did the right thing and was certain that he had all of the data that he needed to jump to a conclusion. And the conclusion was that, this guy on YouTube doesn't know what he's talking about, or that he's trying to promote these cams that don't work, or whatever, whatever the thing is. So he did all that and then came to some foregone conclusion, but it wasn't an accurate one. And that's why one set of data points doesn't always give you the entire answer. And that's why when I test stuff, it's much better to test it 10 or 20 times so you can get lots of data and go, look, here's all the times I've tested it. And you've tested it one time and you got this. So got all this against this. Let's look and see if there's not something here that we're missing. So I was more interested in just solving the problem and getting this guy the thing that I knew he should have, because it's not, it's not rocket science. So every time you put that Truck Norris cam in something, it does very well and does exactly what you'd expect it to do given those cam specs. And so after that, he was very, very happy. So it was good. Let's see. So I wonder let's try this for a second. Let's see. Let's do our poll. Will cam swap make less of a power gain on the chassis dyno than the engine dyno? Let's see what people have to say. I think it goes for everything. Chevy, Ford, Dodge, Coyote. I really stirred it up with a Coyote LS thing. Scott, Eric, Jet, Dennis, what's going on? Jerk. I'm shortening all of these. Richard, I finally dynoed my S10 with a 4.8 liter. Made 300 wheel horsepower with the truck stage 2. Cool. And where did it make power at? And as we were talking about earlier, what was the timing? Cool topic. They don't have these in aviation. Fun horsepower in S10. I know, 300 wheel horsepower. I had a 5-liter Mustang engine, a dart-headed 5-liter with a camshaft in it. It's probably a B cam or an X cam or something. Nothing extremely impressive. I think it even had a GT40 intake manifold on it. We had it in a Miata, and that made 300 at the tire. It made 297, I think. Had long tube headers on it. We took it to the Silver State race. That Miata went 167 miles an hour. It was awesome. And it was all painted up as blue with white stripes. Look, it had the Cobra Guardsman blue with Wimbledon white stripes, and it looked like a Cobra and a Viper. And then there were a couple of those out there too, so it was kind of cool. We parked next to them because we were trying to be cool. 1 liter Moth, currently off today. Smoking some pork, nice for the kids for dinner. Cold beer, dude. You're living the good life, man. It's a blast. I have a 6-liter waiting for this 4.8 to blow up. Oh, so you got a backup motor, dude. You are high dig. Texas Speed Chop and Truck Norris Lope at idle for sure. Yeah, they will. Parasitic loss in a wheeling rig is nuts. My 240 looks like the thumbnail photo. That one was that was actually the car. This wasn't the car that I'm talking about. The one that I have in the thumbnail photo was a drift car, and that's actually the car that I ran the motor on the engine dyno and put it in the chassis dyno. And I'm trying to remember this. It was a drift guy. I'm trying to remember his name. Really, he's a nice kid. People want to hear the answer that they want to hear. Yeah, I mean, I think out there in internet land, people want to, it's a lot. People get more excited about complaining about something, it's about conspiracy theories and about, oh, it's this, and rather than just saying, hey, dude, that's nice. That's a nice job. That's a cool car. I want to try to do more of that. So if I don't do that, you guys can call me out on that. Finished the Jazz 16-gallon fuel cell installed in the 97 Chevy 2500 454 Gen 6 Sylvie. Plumbed to dash 8 Earls. Nice. Speedflex hose. Runs way better. Valerie Comp 110 FI. How's that pump work, BNR? Have you used that before? You have a Chevy GMC pickup that stock gas tank is not good for hard launches. Does it uncover the pickup? How do you like the MDS system? The DoD stuff? You don't need a 6-liter manual transmission, and a well-matched rear end gearing would be well balanced. Is that in the 4.8 that you were talking about? The DoD on the Ford and Ram are no better. Just delete it. Most guys do get rid of that, certainly for performance use. I love racing Fords on race day because there's only 2 things they do consistently. The red light or brake. Oh, some Ford and Chevy shade throwing going on. Richard, we'd love to see you as Steve's replacement engine masters. They're not shooting engine masters anymore. And also, as a side note, nobody could replace Brule. Yeah, hot air intake. It's not bueno. Max, you need to slow your roll. So I don't know if this is your first time here, but you're about to get kicked out. So here, we don't just like Fords. We don't just like Chevys. We don't just like Nissans. All of it's good. I've done lots of Coyote testing, done lots of LS testing. I got an RB25. I've got a 1 liter Metro and a Sprint Turbo. So if you want to be that guy and you want to come here, you can like what you like, but if you want to be that guy, if you came here to like put down other people, you're out, dude. 4 liter overhead cam. Talk about chain failures. Yep. I hope the 4L60E was built tough. Yeah, I have the 4L60E that came out of my truck. So if anybody needs a core for anything, it's just I want it out. 2001 Suburban 3/4 ton 4-wheel drive 408 LS. You beat a turbo Mustang through 3rd gear. Oh, that's good. Boss 302, 351 Cleveland, 460, nice engines. Yeah, all that's good. Hard to argue against a Boss 302 just as a really cool, looking Mustang. And a 351 Cleveland. I'm not as hip on the Boss 351 Mustang body style as I am on the Boss 302, but the 351 does make more power. I have a 565 big block in my Firebird. That's good. 427 high port. Oh, our high port high riser. You need 10,000. Yeah, that's not a cheap date. That's like camera money, huh? $351 Cleveland M code breaks a lot of hearts in a light car. Cars and trucks today will probably smoke the average custom build. So it is cooling off. That's right. The fans turned off. Must be cooling off. It was very cool today. It was nice. It's 66 right now. Richard, I've used the Mallory Comp 110 before on my 63 Grand Prix. 455 pump gas iron heads. It's quiet gear rotor pump. It's an external pump, right? It's not in the tank one. All the extra drivetrain, 1-ton axles, 40 to 50% power loss is extremely common. On what we don't even see 40 to 50% power loss on a trophy truck. So are you talking about some sort of big, you always have a minimum of 10% less horsepower and torque on chassis dyno because of parasitic losses of the clutch? Yeah, it's not a percentage, but there is going to be a difference. But the starting point will also be lower. The starting point and the ending point, if you're doing a cam upgrade, let's say, the baseline number is going to be lower, and then where you start from and where you end up, those will both be lower. Did I miss a bunch of stuff or something? Oh, here we go. They'll import my 862 heads or look for some 799s. 3,700 pound car. What motor is that you have? If you have a 4.8 or a 5.3, I wouldn't put 799s on it. On a 5.3, yeah, you don't need 799s. If you can port a set of 862 heads to support 100 horsepower more than you're ever going to make with that motor. So that's not a problem. How about LS3 motors? Yes, those are good. Gave up on building because it's not worth it. Yeah, I think most of the people here are going to argue that. And I'm scrolling. Kelbank said the horsepower loss on a chassis down is not a set percentage. It's not. Said that losing more power the more you add doesn't make sense unless you increase drag. Yeah, I think that the only thing that's going to increase as a percentage is the frictional loss, but that's a very, very small percentage of what's going on. A transmission, whatever transmission it is, given its internal makeup, its gearing and stuff, is going to have a certain amount of loss. Same thing for the rear end. Same thing for the tires and the brakes and all that stuff. If somebody that thinks it's 15% or 20%, if you what 20% would be 2,000 horsepower in a top fuel motor. You don't have 2,000 horsepower with a drivetrain loss. So that's just not, it's just not realistic. My 496 big block with Promax 317 heads made 610 on the engine dyno. Nice. The dogs are doing good. Struna. With all the extra drivetrain. Yeah, I got that. Water-based dyno resistance is so 1970s. What do you want to do? Pace the stretch Armstrong, draw the flywheel and count how long it takes to scrub them off against the Brillo pad. Okay. I don't understand that, but who's got a good machine shop in Virginia? Does anybody know? Just bought a 2004 LS6 bare block for a project. Now I realize I have no 5.7 pistons laying around. Yeah, and you can't. You're going to have to be. That block doesn't take a lot of overbore. One to gap rings on a 403 stroker build. You recommend for 10 pounds? 6.5 thousandths per inch of bore. Any bare 4-bolt main Boss block in Australia was insanely expensive to buy. When I saw one in the mid 80s. Yeah, I haven't seen one of those for a while, but they were money even way back then. LQ4 6-liter, which heads would be better, a 241 or a 243? A 243 will make more than a 241 if they're both stock. Is it worth the compression gain to go with thinner head gasket? Well, if it doesn't cost you anything, then yeah, it will add power. That's what we did on the L33. We used an 041 gasket on it. Get away, what's going on? What Gen 5-liter Coyote would you recommend for me on my Fox body? I have a 93 LX sitting around. I think all of them have the potential to make lots of power. How complicated do you want to get on the ECU to drive that for direct injection? Do you want to deal with direct injection? What do you think of waterless coolant? It's pricey, but it's not often replaced. I don't think it's realistic for most guys out on the street. Got a 5.3 LH8 with 799 heads. So I threw a Summit Stage 3 high lift cam in, made 289 to the tires. I was wondering what my drivetrain loss is looking like. I don't know. Do you know what that motor made when it was stock? I mean, LQ4 6-liter, 823 heads. So you need a cam for 550 horsepower, probably a BTR hot rod or red hot cam for that. Richard, have you heard of anyone trying to make a single plane intake manifold for Gen 7 big blocks? I haven't heard of anyone. Are you doing it, Mike? Keep wondering if you could use an intake manifold from an old 80s GM Spreadport Pro stock heads. I don't know. I don't know what the positioning of the port is. And what's the shape of the port on a I think that the intake manifold is going to be different than a Gen 7 head, right? Richard, is 700 horsepower on LS1 block doable? It is with boost, yeah. Forty, 50% loss reference, turbo 400, 2800 stall, dual transfer cases, 70 axles, 513 gears. What is that for? Is that a rock crawler or something? I don't know what they're using. I thought that they were using turbo 400s in the trophy trucks, and they're going to have a stall converter in those. I don't know what the transfer case is, but those things are 4-wheel drive, right? But it's not anywhere near 40 or 50% on those trucks. Is ring gap end calculated by the manufacturer to have ample clearance if it overheats? Not at any temperature, no. They have given you some, but they figure if you've overheated it too bad, and usually if you've overheated the motor from lack of coolant or whatever, the ring gap thing is not going to be a problem. You're going to warp a head or something before that probably happens. Chris, supposedly 300 horsepower stock, but not 300. If you're making 300 at the tire, how does it make 300 when it's stock? Or are you comparing a stock flywheel rated number to if you're the same guy, to a wheel horsepower number? Engine dyno has a direct engagement to the dyno on the chassis. You have things like tire size and gear ratio. Yeah. But as long as you keep those things consistent, and the only thing that you're changing is the engine configuration, that can still be a really good test. I think you're certain you want to do a 5-liter Coyote. I think the popular swap is the 321. So you're doing a hybrid then? I really appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge. I'm happy to help. I'm good with a nice upgrade in my 93 LX with modern power without breaking the bank. Someone else can be the hero for all the power. What's on the near horizon we might see on the Dyno West Tech? I'm going to be down there this week and part of next week, I think. And I have one of the viewers is running something down there. I told them I would go down and maybe do a video on it. I think it's a stroker LS. Overbuilt. Oh, it's a crawler. Okay. Yeah, and the gearing is going to affect that too. Richard, a high-end question here. My nephew just got his first car, a Cavalier Coupe 2.2. What do you spend it on? Cold air intake, plugs and wires, cat back, new injector, throttle body. None of the things that you mentioned there, with the possible exception of the air intake, are really going to add power. A cat back probably isn't worth much on that. It's just not. I don't think that the cat back would be very restrictive on that, and I don't think that the throttle body would be. I think what I would do is make sure that the thing is running correctly, and make sure it's hitting on all the cylinders. maybe you could go through and do a compression test, make sure all of those are even, check the plugs, maybe clean them at least. You can change the gap on them if you want to do that. Make sure that the wires are not melted or anything. Just make sure that it's running right. You're not going to get big gains from any of that stuff. A cold air could look cool. It's going to make it sound different, which is good. So will the exhaust. But just don't look for big power gains from that on that car. Chris, happy to help, man. Be sure changing the clutch fan Saturday on the Tahoe. Severe duty. I think the real question here is, do you trust an engine dyno more than a chassis dyno? If that question is to me, I trust them both. I don't trust the chassis dyno. I don't go do chassis dyno testing for little increments. Like I wouldn't do a chassis dyno test like when we did the thing, when it was doing the stuff with Engine Masters, when we did the piston flip thing. I wouldn't look for to the right side of the decimal point, less than 1 horsepower on chassis dyno. I wouldn't do that. I don't even like doing that on an engine dyno, because if you're looking for that, you're looking in the wrong place. If you're thinking, oh look, it made 0.6 horsepower, that's not real. That's one cavitation of the pump or something. It's just not. That's not a thing. So you're in the Bonneville Club, yes. Yeah, in my Honda Civic. Hub dyno takes out a few variables. Yeah, I agree. I'm comparing the stock crank advertised power to my new hub dyno number. Yeah, Chris, that's not, you can't do that. You can't compare those there's no measure there. When you can change the tire pressure on the chassis dyno and get a different horsepower reading, it tells me all I need to know. Yeah. Will 700R4 hold up to a 5.3 truck Norris cam? A stock one? I don't know. Has anybody ever tried that? Has anybody ever tried a 700R4? I think a 700R4 isn't any stronger than a 4L60 is. Cavalier's an automatic. Is there a shift kit for it? There might be, although I've never searched, so I don't know. I would be surprised if there's a shift kit for that, like they sell them for turbo 350s and 400s. I'm hoping that they still do. The last one I bought was long ago for that, or for these other ones. I would be surprised. And is that, if it's a 2000, is that transmission computer controlled, which I think it probably is. Jose, what's going on? Mexico's in the house. LH8 is basically a Gen 4 L33. Scrolling. Any leads for a company to send my K-Series head off to be serviced? I don't need porting, just valve job and guides if needed. I don't know who does that stuff. I don't even know if Skunk does that stuff in-house. Have you read June 2019 Carcraft 65 Chevelle 327 stroke to 410, making 845 horsepower at 7,200? Seems like an awesome engine. A 410 that makes 850? That seems like it's sprint car territory. I mean, you can make a 410-inch motor make that kind of power, certainly. 7,200 seems a little bit low, maybe, but that's more than 2 horsepower per cubic inch. That's quite a bit. Richard, if you had to pick a Euro engine to build, which is the least complicated? Well, I myself, I don't know about European ones. I would pick a Japanese one. I'd pick a Honda because I have a lot of experience with those. But all the other ones are going to be similar. They're all going to be, you know, I'm thinking you're wanting a double overhead cam or something like that, right? What's up, LA? So is that Louisiana? Not LA, like right down south, right? Do you offer cam spec advice for a big buck Chevy? Yeah, I'm not consulting, but you're in the right place. Just tell me what kind of power you're trying to make and what the displacement is and all that. I could probably pick something that I've tested before. In my area, no one has anything race car like. I feel like all racing aspects have been doomed. I don't think that that's the case. I think you'll find that there's lots of zoomy fast cars around. Couldn't the free valve setup be correct cam, being it could be optimized valve events everywhere? Yeah, if there was a way to make it work and have it be affordable and be mass produced, then it would be something that would be cool. How about an older VW Golf? Those are cool. I mean, all the little BMW motors, of the M series BMW motors, even the earlier 4-cylinder ones, but all the 6-cylinder stuff, all those are good too. Small block Chevy, 450-inch small block stroker. Did 850 at the flywheel, 611 at the hub dyno through a turbo 400. Is that possible? Yeah, we've seen numbers like that on the trophy trucks, but it's at the tire though, on a engine or on a rolling with the tires. I don't know about a hub dyno. I don't think I've ever tested anything on a hub dyno. What's the best cam and turbo combo for an LQ4 to have a quick spool and make at least 1,000 horsepower? Well, for 1,000 horsepower, you're going to need a VS Racing 7875, like a Gen 2 or a Gen 3, or you're going to need, we'll start here. We'll start with the inexpensive route. That or an S475. If you can find a T4 S475 or an S480, that would be good. On a 6-liter, a couple things you'll want to do is if you have a 6-liter that has 317 heads on it, you'd be much better off putting a different head on there. It would help response because it's going to help with compression. Either one of the cams that I have or something similar to those would easily make 1,000 horsepower and give you very quick spool. BMW's Valvetronic is pretty good. Yeah, I like the BMW stuff. And they have good eyeball too, especially the M series stuff. He's saying that there's a neon powertrain swap kit for Cavaliers. I haven't ever heard of that. That would be cool because if a neon motor would go in there, then that should mean that an SRT4 motor could go in there, an SRT4 trans, right? Which that would wake the Cavalier right up. Shadow Ops, yours has a 700 or a 4060 in it. It's driving around good. Cool. Stock 704 will take 350 foot-pounds for a while before it fails. Can be built for 550 to 600 foot-pounds. All sorts of claims or 1,000 horsepower stuff. I remember when NASCAR, let's see here. Angel, thank you. Did you have a question? Let's see here. I remember when NASCAR put our cars on dyno to get baseline readings. We snuck it into third gear and lost 15 horsepower. I know, you just got to know the tricks, right? 2016 Corvette looking for a blower. How much power do people make on GM factory blowers? Depends which one. There's 2 different factory blowers, and now there might be 3. But I know there's at least 2. The thing that I would be, let's see. 2016. There. So the LT4 was 650 horsepower. And the LS9 was more than that. So you can easily make that much. But the thing that you have to be concerned with is you're also going to be able to, you need to supply enough fuel to do that. Have you ever done a test with how good of a tune you can get optimized with something like HP tuners on a stock PCM compared to a Holley standalone? They're exactly the same. You can change the tune on HP tuners to give you the same amount of timing that I use when I run on the engine dyno and the same air fuel. So you'll make exactly the same power with HP tuners. It gives you the ability to do that. The reason that I don't use those, if that's going to be your next question, is because it just takes too long. It takes me 5 runs on the Holley to where it's right, and it just takes too long to load programs in a stock PCM for doing engine dyno stuff. Also using a Circle D stall converter. Just watched Steve Morse's video, and Ed was exactly 15% higher than the hub dyno. The engine dyno was. Cool. So you can find combinations where that works. That's not universal, though. If that was the case, then that means you could hook a Honda transmission to a top fuel car. It doesn't work like that. Richard, are you a Honda guy? Yeah, I wrote 3 books on Honda stuff. I had for a long time the world's fastest Honda Civic. I road raced the Del Sol and won the U.S. Touring Car Championship. So I'm a big fan of Hondas. How do you stroke a 327 to 410? Got to use a small base circle cam, and you got to notch the rod bolts. Crawler is scheduled to get back on the chassis down next week. 7875 setup should easily surpass the 339 wheel horsepower from the GT35 setup. There's definitely a lot more turbo there. Torque storm centrifugal superchargers are really inexpensive. Have you heard anything from durability on those? I think the durability is really good. I still have mine. I've had it for a few years now, and it works good. I like their stuff. They're good guys there. I'm getting ready to run some Pontiac stuff. I'm going to run it on the little 4-cylinder and on the 350. Angel, you won't make anywhere near 550 horsepower unless you do boosts on it. 400 flywheel horsepower is easily doable. 400 to 450 is where you'll be. Unless I have videos up that you can make 500 horsepower, but it's not going to be a terribly good driver because it's going to have a really big camshaft in it. You have to put, expensive ported heads and a high RPM intake manifold on it to get it to make 500 flywheel horsepower. But you won't get to 550. Well, you can, but again, it's not where you're going to want to be. But 450 is just a good cam and springs. Time to press replay on the debates and pass out. These complicated Euro engine VW air cooled. I watch a lot of air cooled stuff. They use the AMR blowers on those. It's pretty cool. Have you ever built any flathead Fords? I have not ever built a flathead Ford. Hi, Golden. Here's your Golden barking and watching TV. Yeah, our dogs do that too. I have another 4060 that was behind an LU3. I wonder if we could take the trans and build it up. Kind of put a cooler on it, and then beating on it like as a rented donkey behind a 350. It's never missed. That's good. And a 350 should have a lot of torque, right? 327, 350s have the same bore. They do. They both have 4-inch bores. Those 410s have a 4155 bore and a 3750 stroke. It's a lot easier to fit a 3750 stroke in a small block Chevy. C24 Cavalier with an SS Cobalt engine. Another good choice. My dogs came over while your dogs are barking. Look at me like friends who want to play. That's it. They're new dogs. Friends. Hey, friend. Found Global Eagle Manufacturing. Nothing on there about head servicing. I think that they do blocks and stuff. Horsepower limitation of a quadrojet equipped 10.5 to 1 big block Chevy. Which quadrojet do you have? If you have an 800 CFM quadrojet, that'll support a pretty good bit of power. 65 Chevelle 410 has 14.5 to 1. 740, 750, 266, 276. 266 actually seems a little small on the camshaft for 850 horsepower. What heads do you recommend for boost? I have 317s. You can use what you have, and you can make the power that you want with those, but it just depends on, you can make it better if you want to put stock heads on it. You put 799s on it. I built a few 704s and 4L60s for myself in the past 15 years. When you see the fluid picking up black stuff, don't be alarmed. Is that surface stuff from the bands and clutches is that why it's putting that in the, is that the material that's putting in the fluid? Cool hearing Richard talk about neons. Yeah, Frost, if you'd been here before, I've talked neon. The Neon Challenge was actually some of my favorite racing to watch. There was nothing closer than that kind of racing. I loved it. The SS Cobalt engine has lots of aftermarket. It does. Most 410s have something. Yeah, 455. Yep. I don't see many clean SRT neons. Yeah. Although you could get that motor from, I see lots of PT Cruisers though in the wrecking yards. I can get an Edelbrock Street Master intake for a small block Chevy. I have a 68307. Better than stock. What's it worth? Is there a cheaper, better, modern option? There's lots of dual plane RPM air gap-esque intake manifolds from China that are available. Those work. Let's see. Okay, Max, you're gone. I don't know what your deal is. I don't know why you can't just come and hang out and be cool like the rest of the guys. But apparently that's not for you. So I wish you nothing but luck. If I'm not mistaken, the Dung Beetle was a draw-through turbo setup. It was, which is kind of cool. And I think that the Dung Beetle had a big Holly on it too, right? Will a Cobalt SS powertrain drop in a Cavalier? I don't know if that's the same. I mean, you're going to have to do something with, if the motor and trans will go right in and the axles all fit and all that stuff, You're obviously going to have some kind of management system to run it. Luca, what's going on? Yeah, let me know when you get your project car back on the road. That's cool. The LNF engine's a hoot. What's it all about? Matt, what's going on? On the 700 and the 460, clutches engage at the same time for second and fourth. Doesn't that get confusing? The first gen RT Neon has a close ratio of 5-speed. Quad 4s used to blow head gaskets. How much cam's too much for a stock port Gen 6 454? Looking for 600 to 700 with twin 366s. Well, you're not going to have any trouble making that. The camshaft problem that you're running into is piston to valve clearance. So it just put that 276 or something like that 276 comp cam is, which is going to be a, go anywhere from 224 to 230 at 50 on the intake. If you're only wanting 700 and you got two 366s on it, you got way more than you need. So you're good. And with a cam in it, it'll make 425 or so at the flywheel. And then twin turbos on that, 700 is going to be really easy. The Dung Beetle would do wheelies, Dan. It hooked up pretty good. They're normally running a 600 CFM. The Dung Beetle was, Matt? Asian was making some steam in the Beetle too. It did. That thing hooked and booked, man. There's no doubt about it. What's the coolest car you've ever been in? I'm thinking the Porsche 962 maybe was the coolest one. Although I sat in the Goldenrod too, I've sat in some fairly cool ones. Is there an update on the giveaway car? Yeah, I talked to him not too long ago. It has a different motor and it doesn't have the turbo diesel in it anymore. We thought my brother's HHR was slow until we figured out how to engage track mode. On some of the newer cars, there is some fiddle faddling. I remember when I did that TV show, The Fastest Car with Chad and his wagon and the whole Daphne thing. There was a guy there that had a McLaren, and he ran into that issue with smoking the clutch because they were just doing a hand drop start basically. And you don't know how long, and he has to engage everything to get it into track mode, and it'll only stay in that mode for a few seconds before it heats up the clutch too much and then decides, okay, no, we're going to save the clutch. And so it goes out of that mode. But when all of that's right, that thing motored. Oh, this is all stock. I'm like, yeah, that's not stock. Now looking into an all-wheel drive for a Saab. Whatever happened to the Sprint? Is it still a project? I have the Metro, if that's what you're talking about. The Sprint was stolen so long ago. Richard, your 89 Mustang was way up there in a cool factor. Yeah, except it's an 88. Best year ever. Goldenrod was an awesome car. Yeah. It was cool. That was at West Tech for quite a while. Passed my sister 175 in Nevada, the Mustang. Yeah, that was fun. CD was 0.116. That is pretty low. Wonder if an Atlas 5 or LT5 will fit in it. I got that startup of McLaren who an M8F. So were you sitting in it and you got to start it up? That would be really cool. that would be awesome. I thought that I was for a long time for me, when I was young, the coolest car that I got to be in was next to my girlfriend was a gentleman that was an art dealer, except I think he was dealing more than art, but he had a Lamborghini Countach. And she, for my birthday, talked him into taking me for a ride. So whatever transpired was definitely worth it for me. So it was awesome because as a kid, I don't know if you guys did, but when I was growing up, everybody had a Lamborghini poster up in their room or in their locker room or whatever, because they were cool. Especially if you'd seen Adrian Barbeau and Cannonball Run and all of that, then you definitely had that. And that was a very cool car. And it was like, it was like being in a spaceship, because I'd been in my Camaro and my Datsun Z and that kind of stuff. And that sort of car was, was crazy. Everybody's looking at you, mostly the police. Have you done any work with marine applications? Yeah, lots of marine motors at Westech. They run lots of boat motors there. Primarily, the difference is the cooling systems, and then the cam timing for wet exhaust is really kind of the only thing. Otherwise, they respond to the same, camshafts and cylinder heads and power upgrades the way that they do. That's kind of the same thing. Gets kind of unhappy there for a second. There we go. When you're going back to Silver State, I don't know if the Silver State is even going anymore. One of my friends next door neighbor had a green Countach. I don't think I've ever seen a green one. Take you for rides in it. It is cool. It's like ultra low. Everybody else is looking down at you. Yep, Lamborghini. And probably, honestly, not like, especially compared to stuff now and stuff that I've built and driven, that car was, not. It was really exotic and it was amazing, and I'll never forget it. But from a performance standpoint, it's not. I'm sure my Mustang could have killed that thing. Did you get rid of the new Ford guy? I don't know why he was so angry. Yeah, he's gone. I you try to give a guy a warning shot, and warning shots are BS. I was going to ask about a movie, but I drove an Audi R8. That's very cool. It's a V8 automatic. Still Tony Stark's car, man. How much power the stock truck injector is good for? Not very much. Not much more than stock. But I don't know what guys do, decapped ones, but I don't recommend it. I was leaning toward the XM284. I think we've run that camshaft in those, and I think that there's enough piston to valve clearance for them. I used to work on another friend's Cobra 427s and 289s. The 427s were fast, but the 289 was a better driver. Did those things have axle hop really bad? I've been in a couple of those. I've driven actually quite a few of those. These were. I drove an ERA, a Contemporary, and then a couple of factory 5 ones too that we were doing stuff on the stack injection on. Tom was doing the tuning on it, and if you'd lay into the throttle like off the line, I was afraid they were going to break something in the rear end. Tuning in from Australia, what's going on? Downshifting to third, the freeway getting sideways. Yeah. And a side pipe car, an open side pipe car like that is, you soon find that for any sort of distance driving, like when they were showing Gumball Rally and you're taking a Cobra, that might be the worst possible car to take for a driving across the United States race. I know, with all this good knowledge, how could anybody be angry? There's nothing but happiness here, right? The only Lambo I'd get is an all white one. This one was white. These are real original Cobras, the Dana 44s. Salisbury's, yeah. But the whole rear suspension, I'm not talking about the rear end. I'm just talking about the whole rear suspension was axle hoppy. Will a cam swap make less power? less of a power gain on the chassis dyno than on the engine dyno. I'm surprised that it's 57-43 in favor of yes. Cobra kits that were sold here in Australia often use a Jag sub. They did that too on the ERAs and the Contemporaries. Jag was kind of the go-to thing. I rode in a Viper with coilovers and side pipes for about 5 hours. Felt like 15 hours. It was miserable. I remember driving down from Northern California to Southern California in the Jensen Healy, and it's British, so you know that there were problems already. The heater didn't work. The top, as we weren't but like 18 or 19 miles from our house, it just yanked the fabric portion of the top, just yanked it right off and destroyed it. And then all we had was the metal frame. This was in December. We were driving back from Christmas. So we stopped off at a gas station and got the Elmer Fudd hats with the ear flaps and stuff on them. It was a blast. But it was a long drive. Was there a vid on the XM284, or was that just in testing? I don't know if I did a video on that cam or not. There might be one on the not specifically on that cam, but just a cam swap, and we may have also added nitrous to it and stuff. I have to go look. 68 Mako had side pipes. Yeah, learned at a young age, stepping out. Yep, you get that badge of courage from the Cobra side pipes, and Corvettes are the same way. The Corvette ones, a lot of them were finned so that they would give you a different design, so you'd know whether you were a Ford or Chevy guy. Factory fives use the Fox geometry. Yeah, they did that on a lot of stuff. Rear suspension was IRS, more wheel spin than axle hop, and not enough handy squat for axle hop. What do you think of the 2-valve motor in the SN95? I've done lots of testing with them. I wrote a book on modular Fords too, so doing lots of testing with them. B&R, I think it was a Salisbury, but that used Dana parts in it. And if I remember, Dan might know. Yeah, typical British car. Yeah, because then the heater went out, so it was like, dude, we just cannot win here. Then I was hoping, not hoping. Well, I was hoping that nothing else broke, that like something big. We couldn't get the oil filter off after I got it back down to Southern California. I had to like chisel the thing off, and it was time to change this filter. I don't think had ever been changed. But it was a Lotus 2-liter twin cam motor with side drafts on it, so it was awesome. Fish, are you asking me how much power I think that makes? Yeah, burning yourself on those is not good. I remember seeing, because the guys with cool Cobras take girls for rides, and they would step out, and it'd just be over. I could see driving one of those godforsaken AC Cobras out. I could not see doing it. We drove the Miata out to the Silver State race and back, and it was a lot. I now run side pipes on everything just under the cab except my Escalade. We did a test on the side pipes used on the Cobras, and they were not good for power. We ran those on the engine dyno, and they hurt power a lot. And the headers that they run for those side pipes are not good either. What do you think of the truck Haas camshaft? It's a lot bigger than the truck Norris, which is way more popular. $351 Victor Jr. 227 cam. I think if I was doing it and this was a street car, particularly if it's in a truck, unless you're drag racing it, I would have put a dual plane on it. My grandpa had a SN95. I have an LS right now. Yeah, the thing that I want to do with the modular Ford is I'd like to do a big bang on a 2-valve motor. If the girls had a polyester fabric dress, it would melt on the side pipes. It would. If it was just flowy and it came across there, it was bad. Or just straight pipes from the turbos. Yeah. When are we getting more Barra content or any Barra content? Yeah, Dan, there's always he was saying that the thing with lots of anti-squat is that the same forces that make it hook hard on acceleration make it scary under braking. It's not, there's always a trade-off. Would the truck house be good for a stock LS engine with supporting mods? It's not the cam I would recommend for any sort of daily driving. It's too big. It's going to lose a bunch of power down low. The truck Norris would be way better. I think that they just did that because they wanted a bigger cam. And maybe they thought that the cam name was good or something. Truck Haas cam specs. Yeah, see, this is yeah, that's not the cam that I would, although it might be for different applications here. Oh, it's a 219, 230 something. Okay. It's not as big as I thought it was. BTR designed the truck house cam for use in cathedral and rec port headed 400 to 416 cubic inch truck applications. That's interesting. I was thinking that it would be bigger. I have the two cams I have. I can send you the dyno results of what they do. I don't think I would pick that cam for a 4.8 or a 5.3. How well do you think a 5.3 with a red hot cam and LSX 102 run over time? The reliability will be fine. I think that cam's too big for a 5.3 unless you're drag racing it. Factories were purposely having low anti-squat because they didn't want hooking and breaking parts. That makes sense. It's all nice when you have like 6-inch wide bias plies on it and it's never going to hook up. And then you put a big block in it. You're like, yeah, you're not going to hurt anything because you'll never hook up. Perfect timing. We were just talking about this issue, how much horsepower is lost when it's in the car versus, well, the engine dyno versus the chassis dyno, first of all, is not a strict percentage. So it varies. It can vary greatly depending on how you tested it on the engine dyno versus how you have it in the car. Do you have accessories? Do you have an air intake? Do you have headers? What's the exhaust like? All of that stuff. And then drivetrain. Every transmission is going to be different. The amount of power absorbed by that transmission, manual, automatic, different kinds of automatics, different kinds of manuals, the drive shaft length and diameter and material, the rear end size, ring gear, all of that, the weight of the axles going out, the spinning the brakes, the wheel and tire package, all of that stuff will change it. What gas engines are used in motorhomes these days? The one that Lisa's parents have is the Gen 7 the 8.1 liter, and that works pretty well. And I'm sure Ford has their stuff too. Blue streaks, that's right. I ran some Goodyear. No, they weren't blue streaks. Mine were Goodyear sports car specials. Polyglass bias plies. Yep. Gen 2 LT1 dyno numbers are not a good indicator of tire to asphalt or track numbers. I would think that they would be a perfect indicator of that. Can't be too worried about busting glass T5s or RX8 transmissions. If you keep dry rotted tires on them, that's it. On that note, it is time to go. I've been here. You guys are keeping me here too late. You can't be doing that. You can't be doing that. I'll see you guys all maybe later tonight, but definitely tomorrow.